Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending. We're just going to give another minute or so for some people to connect, and we'll get started. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first Spectra Geospatial Origins Field Software Introductory Training webinar. My name is Michael Yates. I'm a Regional Channel Manager for Trimble Spectra Geospatial. With us today is Jeff Blanton, our Product Manager for Origin Software, as well as Joe Sass, our Field Application Engineer. He will be presenting today. Today is a 1-hour training webinar. If you haven't signed up for the July 21st second webinar, please do so. It's a more advanced webinar. It's called the Next Level. If you have any questions throughout the webinar today, please feel free to type them into the question box and we'll answer them as we go along. And without further ado, I'll introduce Jeff Blanton. Jeff?
Thank you, Michael. And to reiterate, thank you everyone for attending today's Origin workshop, or training, I guess I should say. My name is Jeff Blanton, as Michael said, and I am a product manager here in the Field Solutions Group. So I'm going to do a quick intro of Origin, and then I won't take too much time up, and I'll pass it on to Joe so you can get into the good stuff. So Origin is a new field software, survey and field software which we are adding to the Spectra Geospatial portfolio. One of the reasons that we did this is to future-proof the field solutions within Spectra. Some of our software is a little behind, especially in the security area. You know, there's a lot of heightened security around software and other components. These days, you probably read about it in the news almost every day. Origin will be available on Windows 10 and Android platforms. Do keep in mind that these are not, Origin does not support third-party data collectors, so it will have to be a Trimble ruggedized data collector, whether it's a T10 tablet or ST10 tablet, sorry, my bad, and MM60, like that. So that's true. Origin will also support GNSS receivers, robotic and mechanical total stations, and will be delivered. You can choose between a perpetual license or a subscription offering. And also keep in mind, this does not mean that we're discontinuing Survey Pro or Survey Mobile. Survey Pro, Survey Mobile will continue on. Later this year, we will announce that they're in maintenance mode. But customers are still free to use it and purchase it in the future. We're going to essentially let the market decide when we pull it. With that, I'll just pass that on to Joe. Joe, over to you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We've got a very broad audience today, so I know we're covering a lot of time zones. I've been a hardcore Survey Pro user for the past 15 years plus. It's probably been the dominant software in my experience. And Origin is an advanced version, but it has different concepts. And today I want to give you a high-level overview of how Origin is organized, and then just take you through some of the dialogues. And I've done that in the form of these short video clips, so you won't have to, I hope everything will go technically well my fear today is not about the content, it's about the technicals. So off we go. I really like this slide. I think it's very graphical and outlines exactly how the software is organized from a purchasing and from a modular point of view. It can be strictly mechanical robotic, it can be strictly GPS, or it can be a combination of both. And then we also offer this light version that will work with the SP60 plus the mechanicals such as the Nikon total stations. And all of these are available as a perpetual, meaning you buy it once, you might maintenance it after that, or you can buy it on time as an annual subscription. And then the Origin Lite notwithstanding, the other 3 modules also have the ability to add on a roads module. As Jeff alluded to, these are the authorized data collectors for Origin. Now, obviously, if a lot of this audience understands that an ST10 is essentially the same as a T10, and that's okay. But our message here is if you're selling Origin, you should put it on a blue device. If you're selling other software, put it on their device. Should being the operative word there. Just one more thing about this screen is that you can see that Origin is organized to run in landscape mostly, but we've also accommodated the portrait orientation, as some people prefer this in some jobs, and some sites are conducive to a vertical landscape. So on all of these, I believe you can turn it and run it in portrait mode. So how do you install it? It starts with the Spectra Geospatial Installation Manager. And I provide 2 links here. This presentation will be posted, but we'll get into this later, but it all starts with the Installation Manager. There's 2 different versions. One is for the Android platform, the other is for Windows 10 platform. And you can go in there and see what the license that you have is authorized for. You can install multiple languages if you want. This is also the way that you update Origin and keep it up to date, is through the Spectra Geospatial Installation Manager. This is a valuable tool. It's like the utility behind the scenes that makes it all come together and keep it up to date. So Survey Pro doesn't have this concept. Survey Pro is strictly a jobs-based software, and Origin has a couple of layers above jobs that are available. It all starts with projects, and then underneath projects you have jobs. And even underneath the projects, you can also have folders so that you can subdivide jobs. You might have just a folder that is just for stake points, or another folder that's just for control points, for example. There's also a utility. It's no secret that I'm owned by Trimble. Part of this transition allows us to more closely align with that ecosystem, and so we have access to the Trimble Connect platform. And you can see up here in the upper right-hand corner that I'm signed in. I've used my Trimble ID to sign in, and now I have access to all of my jobs across the cloud or across any controller, as long as I've got my settings set up to synchronize. And there are various states of synchronization that I outline here. I won't read these to you. I'm sure that you can figure these out. What I would say about this page is it highlights the depth and the content of the help menu. So if I needed help on this page, I would hit those 3 buttons in the upper left-hand corner of the display. That would drop a menu out. I would go to the help menu, and the help menu would give me, it's an HTML page, and it would give me help about this page. So it's a very useful tool within the software. Survey Pro had a similar thing. We kept a question mark on the desktop, or somewhere on one of the toolbars. Here, these 3, I think they call it a hamburger. Somehow it looks like a hamburger. It doesn't to me, but those 3 horizontal bars always provide access to the help menu, and they are available on virtually every single page. With Origin, you need to do a little bit of advanced work before you can actually get to the point of surveying. And in very broad terms, Origin is divided up into 3 sections. And the first one is styles. And styles define how I'm going to use what equipment. You know, is this going to be RTK, or is it going to be robotic, or is it going to be mechanical? If it's mechanical, which instrument do I want to hook up to, etc. So I might have another one here that says post-processing if that were a part of my landscape as far as the way I use GNSS. So styles very broadly define the equipment that will be used and how it will be used. And that's combined with templates. And a template is attached to every job, and it defines these things that you see here. So layers, if I've got a map, you know, a DXF file, for instance, that has many layers, I can control it through the layering here. And the features are the FXL style features that we had in Survey Pro. It's the same thing. And then the third part of Origin is these connections. What am I going to connect to when I'm using Bluetooth? What am I going to, you know, what are my radio settings inside my robot if I'm doing that? Internet, where are my base stations? What base stations am I going to tie into, etc. So you need to coordinate and you need to organize all of these before you can get to this point where you're actually surveying. And it seems onerous at first, but when I actually started counting keystrokes, let's say I have a fully configured Origin and a fully configured Survey Pro, the number of keystrokes to get to this space right here where I'm surveying is like 3 keystrokes less inside Origin than inside Survey Pro. So on a daily repetitive basis, it really does bring the configuration into the background, if you will, because you do it once and then you don't really have to mess with it again. So styles, how do we do the styles? As I said, this hamburger button is almost always available on most of the Origin pages. I click on that button, I go down to settings, I select survey styles, and there are 3 survey styles that you see down there at the bottom of the page. Now, hopefully this is where the tech comes in. So I'm on my main map page. This is the main working page. I'm in a job, I'm in a project. I go down to settings and I arrow up here to survey styles. I can create a new style, I can edit an existing one, I can copy one. So in this example, I copy one that's already obviously made up for the robot. And since my initials are JNS, I'll call it JNS F35. And it's taken all of the settings of that other style and put it into this style. If I want to go in and look at what these settings are, I want to measure phase 2. What is my centering error? When I'm doing topo, you know, do I want the points to go step 1? Tolerances for stakeout. Maybe that horizontal tolerance might be a little tight, but these are all fully configurable. The stakeout is pretty incredible, actually. A lot of these displays for stakeout are editable. So not only for what you see, but for what fields are displayed. For instance, in the delta points, maybe I don't need some of these settings and I want to see others. I'm allowed to go in there and edit all of these, as you can see by the edit button. And again, you do it once, set your tolerances and your preferences a single time, and forever after, every time you use this style, you will have these settings. Again, if I had any questions about what that page means or what it does, I can go to the help menu and get help on that page. You can see that laser rangefinders are supported and a few of the echo sounders are also supported. Once I do that, I've stored the style. All right, that's an optical. I'm doing RTK. Maybe I'll just create a new style from scratch. I can give it a name. I'll be very creative with my naming convention here. You can see I've got 2 different main styles and then the integrated, which represents a combination of both GPS and total station, a robot. So my rover, what kind of corrections is it going to receive? Is it going to come through the internet? Is it going to come network corrections? What antenna is being used at the rover? You can see that we granulated down to the SP60, SP80, SP85, SP90M, etc. A lot of times, like for instance, putting in the HR or HA, you do it once here. Most people are on a 2-meter pole and you never have to worry about it again. The rover, is it going to be a radio connection, an internet connection? If it's an internet connection, who am I going to connect to? So again, I don't have to answer this question each time. It just goes out and does it for me each time. And this is the preamble. The work that you do in advance is what saves you all the keystrokes later on. So it's a departure from what a Survey Pro user is familiar with, but I think it takes maybe an hour, 2 hours to get immersed into this approach. And again, I'm going to belabor the point. The help menu is invaluable as it answers questions live for you directly related to the page you're on, and it does a very good job with that. What is my base going to do? Is it going to broadcast through a radio? If so, what radio? What are the receivers? I can connect to the radio and program those channels and modulations. Topo points, how do I want topo points to be controlled? What level of quality do I want to be put on the point? How long do I want to stay on the point? For control points, am I really going to do 180? Not in a demo, I'm not. Again, what level of quality control? If I don't know what those mean, I can go to the help menu and it will tell me what they mean. So I have these different types of points that are available as drop-down lists in my measurement screens. So I tell the program what type of point I'm collecting, and it applies these parameters to those types of collections. Set these preferences and parameters a single time in advance, and it's done forever, as long as you've got that style. And these styles are portable. They can be copied through File Explorer and placed on other data collectors for use broadly and uniformly throughout an organization. Stakeout is very, I really was impressed with Survey Pro Stakeout, and I still am, but I must say that the breadth of choices inside Origin for Stakeout is quite impressive. And so we've made a style based on RTK. Now let's see what an integrated survey style looks like. So integrated, again, is a combination of robot and GNSS. I can give it whatever name I want. I can tell the software that this is an integrated survey, and it says, well, what do you want? What style do you want to use for your conventional instrument? We'll use the one we just created. For GPS, we'll also use the same style we just created. And then how far is it between the prism and the antenna? Flyout menu there will allow me to change units or go to a calculator. I'm not going to be doing any roads today, so we'll leave that turned off. Have some built-in prisms already predefined, and we can store this integrated survey. So those are styles. That's the first part of the software. Then we have templates. So let's go in and take a look at templates. Okay, the hamburger button, pull down to settings, and go to templates. So you can see by my naming convention the various choices that you have. We have no projection, no datum. What does that mean? We'll look in the help menu. Actually not. I will come to that in a little bit. But you can see that I can set these things up for basically feeder meters for a US audience. That could be important. Scale, what do I do with that? So here I have a variety of choices that are quite different from Survey Pro. As far as the way it's presented, the end result and the math behind it is probably the same. But one of the things that I needed to understand to really get comfortable with the software, that scale factor, this top choice is used for a conventional instrument. And some places have local scaling, in fact, so you might even plug in a scale factor here, but primarily it's for a conventional total station or robot. Whereas the no projection, no datum is if it's a primarily GNSS type survey. And so that's an important piece of the software to understand. And again, this is well outlined, and I pulled this information from the help menu. So I will probably harp on that for quite a while. But let's go back in and take a look at this. If I choose scale factor, so those are those choices, and in the seminar in 2 weeks, I'll get more into coordinate systems themselves. I just wanted to show the choices. I think it's interesting here that you can have distances, for instance, in one set of units and elevation in another set of units. And for US quad maps, a lot of times I've seen the mixture of both of those. Map files, and I'll try and pull in a DXF file and you can see what that looks like. This is the Windows Explorer portion of the software where I'm able to browse throughout the hard drive of whatever device I happen to be on. I think I was close in the first place and went searching for. Click on that twice allows this to be an editable, clickable image. My layer my feature library, again, as I told you, this is the FXL style that we're used to with Survey Pro. There are a lot of additional settings. You can actually write out a file if you're using Total Station. You can put that out live. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's GNSS. Look in the help menu. It's one or the other. It doesn't do both yet. Media file, very interesting. You can watch for your picture folders and then automatically pull those in and present those as a feature of the point. So those are templates. And then finally, we have connections. Put all three pieces together so that we can get to that point where we're surveying. We need to go in and figure out what's going to connect to what when, right? So we have this very cool tab. This is a very cool tab. Most of our connections are Bluetooth. So as a rover, I'm going to be using this SP60 every day. You know, when I go out and I do my Total Station work, I need to use the robot. Well, this software has not seen my robot, so let's go out and find it. Now my TV, Bluetooth on the TV, but it will find Focus 35. And you say, well, why aren't you using the radio? I could, and quite honestly, there's a place to set that up. This is the Windows side of my data collector, telling me that, asking me if I want to pair, says that the connection was successful. I make a misclick here. No, I don't want to shut down Origin. Hit the wrong X. So this Focus 35, what is it for? Well, it's to connect to a conventional instrument. So I select that off the list and it puts it in that field for me. So you can see that if I have the SPDL or I have the onboard radios, it will connect. Here's where I set those channels. You can see right here, it says radio version, serial number loading, and in the end, it's going to fail. And I thought about redoing this, but I've got a lock and go model. This doesn't have built-in radio, so it's obvious it would fail. So it just goes away. Automatically connect to my Focus 35 and my GPS when it sees it. GNSS contacts is Origin's way of saying base station. So a lot of times in network base stations. And how am I going to get to the internet? I have a variety of configuration options there. It can be built-in, it can be Wi-Fi, it can be network. So, and then here are my connections. Yes, I'm going to use Ntrip. No, I don't need to send username. Here's my username and password and address. Maybe my data collector doesn't have built-in GNSS. I can configure it to use external GPS. I don't think that's the standard these days. And now I've defined all my connections, right? So I've done the three things I said I needed to do to get to that point where I can land survey. So how do I make a measurement? This is with my lock and go, Focus 35. And I actually was, oops, sorry. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm connected to my Total Station. I open up the project. I open up the job. I called this one. You can see that I'm reading horizontal and vertical angles. I've got a single point on the job. So when I go and I hit the measure button, or if I come over here and I go down to the measure button, they'll say, what kind of survey are we doing today? So we'll use that JNS Focus 35 definition. It says, okay, station setup, here we go. You can have this as a choice. You don't need to see this page if you don't want, but if you do want to put in temperature and pressure, you can, and it will compute the ppm correction. You can also have coefficient of refraction turned on or off. So I'm on 0.1, it automatically pulls in that northing and easting and the height, my instrument height, and I can measure the true height or to the notch. And if it's the notch, then it's a slant height, right? And we do the mechanical correction. So where's my backside? So it wants a backside name. I haven't figured out, in Survey Pro, we didn't necessarily need to have a backside name. In Origin, it seems like we do. So we're keying, we want it to be a 0 typically. And I can still do angles only, so I'm just setting the circle, or I can actually go in there and do angle and distance. Then I need to be on glass, right? So I have a variety of controls here. My joystick control will turn the instrument either way, up, down, sideways, fast, slow. I can have it do an automatic search if it's somewhere in the field of view, and the instrument will automatically go out and look for it. You can see now I've got that target, that lock icon on the prism, meaning that the instrument is locked on to glass. I can then take my measurement. You can see on the instrument icon at the top, going in and out, it's measured the horizontal angle and set it to 0, measured the vertical angle and the slope distance. I've now set up and oriented my total station. Here I can choose direct reflex or prism, and you can see that the dotted line turns to indicate the angle that the instrument is pointed. I can give it whatever point range I want. It's not a survey control point, maybe it's just a topo point. Measure. That target height is wrong if I'm using direct reflex, right? Measure. I can measure and see the beam going out and coming back. Taking the measurement, I've got a result. And I've got it set up so that I need to hit the store button. If I didn't want to do that each time, then I could make that change and it would just automatically store as long as it met whatever parameters of accuracy I required for it. Then we have access to the global feature list. This can be customized using the feature definition manager installed on a Windows 10 machine. See also these 3 vertical buttons allow me to scroll the map screen back and forth, so I get just as much text as I want and just as much map screen as I want, and it's variable in a live setting. For GNSS measurements, then we need to open a project and then a job. I'll create a new job. Be very creative again with my naming here. What am I going to work in? Well, no projection, no datum allows me to work on the ground. Yes, I want to use a geoid model. I'm going to use geoid 18 for the US, but Origin also has to have some idea of the average elevation of the job, so that's what I put in. And I want to use a feature library on this job. If I had an AutoCAD, maybe I would want to go in and turn on some layers and off other layers. So I'm in my main map screen. I want to now make a measurement with GNSS. You can see at the top, already connected. What style do I want to use? I'll use the same style we created earlier. It automatically goes out and finds my mount points and highlights the one that we were on last. So JNS_R. If you get hung up here, it means you're not talking to your base station, right? We're connected to the rover, and you can see now up in the upper right that we're float, and now we're fixed. Origin will inform you that you have obtained a fixed solution, and you're now ready to measure points, right? So I'm going to measure point number 102. I can pull up my feature definition list, or I can manually type in the code. And the code does not have to be part of the list. If I want to make up my own code on the fly, I can. If I type it in, it will highlight the appropriate one. I need to find the point range that I want to call this. What my HA is, my antenna height, usually 2 meters. And then what type of measurement method. I've got 4 different choices here. And this is a very cool and convenient way to separate out your measurements and have them occur on their own layer, so to speak. So one of the features of fire hydrant is a photo. So I have the option of inserting a photo. So that's a topo point. A rapid point, I need to give it a point range. Remember that all of these can have their own ranges, right? These different rapid point, topo point, calibration points, they can all have their own range of point numbers. Makes it also very convenient for organizing. So in this rapid measurement mode, it's just taking one epoch of data, making sure it meets some minimum parameter, and then going on from there. For the observed control points, this can be used for calibration purposes so that I can get my GPS on the ground, for instance. Because this is a calibration or a control point, the style said set it up for 180 seconds. Now, if I want to temporarily change it, I can change that number here, but it won't apply to the style until I go into the style editor and actually make the change there. Changes made here are temporary. I'm not, for the purposes of the demo, I'm not going to wait the full 180 seconds. The conditions, the epoch counter keeps on resetting because the conditions are not meeting the criteria that I set up in the style. Up here in the style, if I go in and make that change, observe control points, and I change this to a lower number because I don't require that high number, let's say just 10 epochs, and I want it to automatically store the point, and I hit store, it tells me it's not going to apply to the current survey. I would have to end my survey and restart it if I wanted to go as a permanent feature of the style. And then I've got this calibration point. This also is a control point, but it gives me the dialog where I can match up my grid point to my GPS point, just like we do in Survey Pro, and the dialog is very similar. So here we can, first we need to have a grid point, right? I'm going to key in a point. Point number 1000, we'll give it a northing and an easting and a height or an elevation. Called ground. This, we will call it a control point. It's really not on the ground. So now we have a grid point that we can use for our calibration example. Go to measure site calibration point, right? So we can do as many points as we want or as few points as we want. I can get to this calibration a couple of different ways. So here now I have a point to choose from, and the software says, do you want to call the GNSS measured point something, the same point name with the suffix? And yes, I set that up before to do that. So now once this point is measured, I can then apply this northing and easting to this measurement of the latitude and longitude, and I could do a 1-point calibration, which would then assume ground distances and a north rotation. For stakeout, I will admit to some amount of not laziness, but I wanted the presentation here to be consistent. So whether I'm doing the stakeout with GNSS or with total station, I wanted to show both in an apples to apples. So making a measurement to the prism, we've got batteries, we're locked onto a prism. Looks like it's probably in a tracking mode. My slope distance is varying slightly. I go to the hamburger to stakeout. I'll show that you can see all the choices for stakeout. I will demonstrate points, lines, and arcs just so that we can be clear about that. You see we're going to stake out point number 3. It says Let me go back. Let me stop this. Let me see if I can pull this back just a couple of seconds. Notice here, this is one difference between Survey Pro and Origin. And in Survey Pro, we would put that STA before the FL, right? STA space FL for flow line, start tangential arc. And in Origin, it's the opposite way. I won't beat that point, but it is a germane point. So we're going to stake out point number 3 using our total station. We're in a tracking mode, and it's giving us directions on how to get to point number 3. And again, we have a variety of ways to present the details of where we're going. We can base it off the line, the default settings. For most people, I would say the default settings are adequate. But if you really want to dive in and customize this so that everything is really well organized with nice layering and point ranges, all of that is completely possible. And again, as I showed earlier, a lot of these, like the delta to the point, maybe I want to have northings and eastings or something else other than what's being displayed. I can turn some off and I can turn others on. And when I go back to the map page where I'm making my stakeout, these changes will be reflected right now. Right, I hit accept. Default, I want it to be in tracking mode. No, I don't want to automatically measure phase 2. Do I want rod perspective or gun perspective? Now I've got my updated fields giving me the information that I need or want to get to that line. When I'm happy with that, I can store the point. I don't have to store the point. And it will give me these deltas as far as how far away I was from the design point and suggest the naming nomenclature. Again, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm not going to save any points. I just want to demonstrate that. So let's go and let's stake out a line. Right? We've got a line. Make sure that my map is, I can key these in manually. I can pull up a list and define them. I can also select them off the map, but there's just one little gotcha here. And that is that over on the far left-hand side where you see the icon highlighted as my hand, that's for panning purposes, and that allows me to move around the screen. Right, 2 points is very convenient. We've already got a line though, so we could click on that. If we knew the name of that line, we could click there. So I'm in there. I want to click on that line. I come up here and I select the arrow, and now it will bring that in, and now I can see the name of the line. How do I want my information about the stakeout to be presented to me? Typically, station and offset from the line. For me, you know that there's many different ways to do this. What do I want my interval to be? My station interval, it can be anything I want. I want a horizontal and or vertical offset from the line. So all of these are set up right here. Once I hit start, I'm given directions and graphics on how to get to my stakeout. You can see that I was working a very small scale, and I actually am offset to the line. I need to go further away from the line to get to that stake location. Same editing choices, but these are specific to the line, arc, polyline, or road. I can customize those entries there. And then finally, you can see I've got an arc going through 3, 4, and 5. Oh, getting ahead of myself. If I want to save the results of that stakeout, which I do not, it's going to give me again all of the information that I probably need about that location. Next, we've got this arc that's created by going through 3, 4, and 5. So if I want to stake out that arc, again, I'm not really sure what the name of the arc is, so as long as I've got the arrow highlighted, I can click on it and pull in that information. I want to find the center, the station offset, station of the arc, to the arc, whatever I want, I've got those choices there. And again, I can just hit the start, total station, tracking mode. That's a very easy thing. You can see I'm still locked onto the prism. I'm continuously sending out measurements with the instrument. And now I'm getting my directions to that arc based on what I said I wanted to do. Same save parameters as we've seen twice already, just specific to the arc instead of the line or the point. Okay, so what am I showing you now? I'm done. GNSS, very similar, but different. Just I won't belabor it, but I will run through these in the same way. I'm in a fixed solution, tracking 17 satellites. Got my HA in there at 1.2. Code for me that it's not a real number. I'm going and stake out a point. What point do I want to stake out? I can pull it from the list. And key it in. It's also valid. When I say I want to select it from the list, I'm actually getting the choice of list or map. Right, so I'm going to click on number 4 and it highlights it both places. Point increment of 1, meaning the next point that it would stake out automatically is point number 5. And here again are my directions. Probably too much information here. As far as the repetitive, my goal here was to show the high levels and see all of the different configuration options that Origin offers. So for instance, here on the suffix, I want it to be _AS for as staked. And I can tell it to do that. How do I want the directions to be supplied? I want it to be surveyor centered. I'm using GPS, I probably do. If I'm using Prism, maybe not. Right, so lots and lots of options here. Again, the beauty of it is you configure them once and they're pretty well set. And you don't have to worry about them from that day forward. Very persistent. If I'm happy with this stake point number 4, I can hit accept. Brings up this page. I've said use a suffix _AS, and it did. And then it gives me the directions and the distances I was away from that point. Very similar. Obviously, we've done it already. We'll do it again for lines with GPS instead of total station. Which line? Then I can select however I want. This is going to give me that line. I get my choices about how I want to stake that line. This time distance along the line. Software provides you with graphics to help you understand what you're doing here. I haven't given this one a lot of look. You can see that you can orient against north or against the sun. I really like that option a lot. While this is going through, and since it is somewhat repetitive, Mike, have there been any questions that have come in or comments that we might address?
No, just one question. Why does it look like access, Trimble access?
So in order for Spectra Geospatial to move forward, we needed to make the software code available to data sets like scans and IFC models and photogrammetric applications. And quite frankly, we had over 1 million lines of code with Survey Pro that dated back 20 plus years. So we needed a platform that would allow us to move forward, but we still wanted to maintain our identity. This seemed like a good way to go. And it seemed like it was advantageous on many different levels to align. We get to take advantage of certain other aspects as well, like the connect and being able to have all of our stuff in the cloud. So it does look somewhat like Access, but it is Origin. So I would say there's advantages and disadvantages, and I tend to see more advantages, like the fewer keystrokes on a daily basis, and the stakeout choices that I have, and the look and feel, and the customizability, and the ability to handle large data sets, and the ability to be loaded on Android. Android is clearly emerging as the field data collector if it's not a Windows 10 platform, Windows 11 coming up. So I think on so many levels, this made a lot of sense. That's my soapbox, and I will get off. Okay, so the tagline we're using, upgrade to Origin, excuse me?
Just Joe, one other question. Are there dealer emulators available that they can install? Yes, absolutely. Just contact your regional manager and they'll be able to provide that for you.
Yes, absolutely. We have put together what we call a transition guide. And it's supposed to be like an if-then type of presentation. If this is what you were doing in Survey Pro, then this is how you do it in Origin. And we tried to put it side by side, and it is in no way comprehensive, but I think it's helpful. And I think that it's one of those 80-20 rules. It's probably going to cover your 80% of your questions, but it's not comprehensive enough to answer all of them. So I think that this is a good first resource. You can print it out so that you have the hard paper, or you can have the digital copy, and that way it allows you to do search for specific words. Available on our website, on the open public website, not protected. We have developed this Origin help portal. It's a specific space on the web, on our website, that's dedicated to Origin. And you can see here that we've got everything from the videos to the installation manager for both Windows and Android. We've got other downloads. We've got PDF guides, the user manual, FAQs. Transition guide is somewhere in here. I don't know. It's probably under the PDF guide downloads and such that we've got that transition guide that I just showed to you. The videos are quite extensive. I think there's maybe 12 videos covering some of the hardcore basics of the software in a different way than I did, but equally informative. The tutorials, we were having a discussion this morning. These are the available tutorials that are available on partners. And I think we made the decision this morning that these will be put on YouTube and publicly linked on our website. There's no reason to not make these publicly available in our minds. If there were disagreement, I'd be curious to hear about that. Right now, these tutorials are limited to the partner site, and I think we're going to open that up. Designed for today, built for tomorrow. I had no opportunity for tomorrow when it comes to photogrammetry, IFC models, DWG with Survey Pro, and now I have all of these possibilities with Origin. So that's what the tomorrow part is about. The Ranger, built for everyone. This is kind of salesy. I didn't mean to get into the salesy message, but these are some of the messaging materials that have been created by both the product marketing team and the Marcom, marketing communications team. A couple of people, Michael Polanski, he's one of our dealers, one of our very most knowledgeable dealers in Eastern Europe and Poland. You can read what he says here. Brian Hess, he's actually a friend of mine. I've known him for 25 years, and he was one of our beta testers. Then a lifelong Survey Pro user, and I gave him the transition guide, and I told him to pay attention to styles, templates, and connections, and I left him alone. And he was able to figure it out, and he liked it, and he likes it. He's using it now. So it's out there a lot. Just in case, since this is a partners webinar right now, I do have this slide here. We do maintain an unofficial dealer training portal. You need to be registered on it. I think most of you probably are. If you're not, maybe snap a screen capture of this and register after the webinar so that you can have access to other things that the techies, the field application engineer in Poland and myself mostly have populated this with a lot of resources that we feel is useful, but didn't really have a home outside of our PCs. So we've made this dealer training portal for you and encourage you to use it. So with that, I think I'm pretty much on time, maybe a little bit ahead of schedule. I'm happy about that. That was one thing I wasn't sure about. But we do have 10 minutes available if there are questions, comments, or any other inputs. I think now is a good time.
Yeah, Joe, there's a question here. It says, what will be the onboard software for the Focus 35? We will continue to have Survey Pro installed on the Focus 35s that are ordered for whenever we stop. So moving forward, it'll still come installed on the Focus 35 when you order it.
Ditto for the Nikons that have that. So we have a couple of minutes. I'm not sure if everything is still awake right now. Let me see if I can make a measurement.
One other question, Joe, will this impact Layout Pro? No, it will not.
I think my instrument went to sleep. It's been sitting there for a couple of hours. Right up here, I have pre-configured this. So this is obviously total station land here. And over here, with that one switch, I'm now measuring in the GPS land. Right, so, and I've calibrated them so that the coordinate systems are the same. And that's anywhere from relatively easy to relatively complex task, depending upon your job site and what you have out there in front of you. But if compared to Survey Pro, I would say that the site calibrations are on par with each other and maybe presented slightly differently, but they are equal in the end result. I will say one thing that affects a lot of people in North America. We use a lot of ground-based assumed systems. And in Survey Pro, when we would do that, we would use an oblique stereographic projection to go from grid to ground. And inside Origin, they use a transverse Mercator. Maybe I might be mistaken. It's either a Lambert or a transverse Mercator. It's not very important unless you're on a very, very large project that's using ground, but it is a point to consider that there might be at the edges of a coordinate system localization like that, there might be slight differences. And with that, I will turn it back over to Michael Yates, and he can decide if we're done or not.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, hand it over and then take it back. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you coming. And I look forward to meeting with all of you in 2 weeks for the follow-up to this one.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Mr. Blanton as well. Definitely make sure you register for the follow-up in 2 weeks, July 17th, I believe, and we'll take it to the next level. One last question, when will this software be available for use? It's currently available now on Partners iStore. It's also available, you can see the pricing in the new Spectra Geospatial price list that's available on the Spectra as well.
And Mike, I'm sorry, you misspoke earlier. The next one is July 21st. It's exactly 2 weeks from today.
Yes, thank you, Joe.
Yep.
So in saying that, I thank everybody for attending. We look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye.
All right, thank you.